Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for February 21st, 2023. I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to again please call the roll.
Trustee DEYNE?
Present.
Gansey?
Here.
Gunstein?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Laporte?
Here.
Sawanski?
Here.
President Wallace?
Here. Item we have on their Committee of the Whole this evening is under Finance and Golf Committee. Chairman DEYNE.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only item we have is the proposed operating budget review presentation. And with that, I'll ask Todd to please move forward.
All right, thank you, Chairman DEYNE. Welcome. This is the proposed budget presentation for the 23-24 budget. We have been working for a while. I'm going to go through some of the reminders here that we put up every year. It's more than just the numbers. It's a policy document. It's also a financial plan. We'll be talking about the major revenues tonight. Mostly revenues. We'll be going an overview of the expenditures, but we'll get into detail of that in the next two meetings where we look at each department. It is an operational guide as far as organization charts and personnel summaries. One big part of that will be coming out tomorrow, the plan is to send it out tomorrow, is the budget message that talks some of the highlights and the points that wants to be stressed. So that's a key to read. The budget calendar, so you can see we're into February, just about ended the budget process. It starts back in May, basically, when the fiscal year starts. We start looking at the capital improvement plan. Total revenue, just over $96 million. This just shows our diversified revenue. One thing new this year that we've been taking a look at is the property taxes. You can see where it's important to have a balanced portfolio of revenue. As during the pandemic, you could tell by the towns that had stable revenue if they were too dependent on one type. So we're going to be talking about the closing of the TIF and increasing and taking advantage of that and increasing the property tax levy later on. So you can see property tax keeps getting smaller and smaller as a portion of our revenue, down to 13% right now. And our expenditures, most of that, or just about half out of the $110 million, is capital projects. Just briefly on the expenditures, we're showing the difference between how our operating expenditures, just about $58 million, our capital, $51 million. Capital fluctuates quite a bit due to the projects. You can see where water connection was back in 2018, 2019. We had a couple years off, and now we're ramping up the wastewater treatment plant. We're going to focus mostly on the revenue. As I said, we're going to be getting into more of the expenditure details later. This is just a pie of by fund. You can see the enterprise funds. A lot of the revenue, general fund makes up about 31% of the total revenue. Here's the new part. So we wanted to talk about this. So the Brewster Creek TIF closed officially December of 2022. That means that the property tax levy for 2022 was still going to fund some of the debt service. There's over $80 million in taxable assessed value that will be coming on to our taxable property. So we're proposing to increase our levy by $750,000. That would pick up that increase in the taxable assessed value. This would still keep the property tax rates, property tax amounts levy, as there'll be more property to be spread over that amount. All the other taxing districts will also be seeing increases in their assessed taxable value at this time when the TIF closes. This is basically the purpose of the TIF, to develop property that will eventually bring more taxable property onto the rolls. So currently we have We had the municipal portion of the TIF money. We were charging about $600,000 of village staff personnel costs to that fund. That will all be, as the TIF closed, those charges will be coming back mainly to the general fund. And so you'll see some increases in personnel costs in the general fund. That's from allocations coming back from the TIF, and the extra $750 in property taxes would go to cover that. There's a little bit more. I think in 2021, total taxes from DuPage County and Cook County for the village portion would have been about $775,000. So we have a couple of years of increase, but $750 is a pretty conservative amount to bring onto our rolls.
Todd, what's the increase in the TIF from the start date? Did you say 80 million? What's the increase in the value of that property out there now?
Yeah, the assessed value is over 80 million. That was back in 2021.
So it went from probably farmland.
It was a gravel pit.
Gravel pit, yeah, even worse than farmland.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was. That's the whole purpose of the TIF. It wasn't going to be developed, so it was a lot of money went into filling in the gravel pit.
So what you're flinging around that $750,000 increase. Essentially, that's our piece of the pie from the increased EAV.
Right.
So that's why we got to grab that. So it's not an exact science. We're hoping it'll be around 750.
Yeah. This is your chance to increase the levy without increasing the property taxes.
Right, yeah.
If you miss this chance,
Everybody understands that.
then the taxes will go down, and then it will look like you're increasing the taxes the next time.
Yep.
So this is your once in 20-year chance.
So 10% of that is ours, you're saying?
Yeah, it's just
What is the breakout for the other taxing bodies? Just ballpark.
It's the same as all the other property
School
taxes.
district?
So the school district, I think is around 60%. School districts do not have the breakdown of all the districts.
Just look at your tax bill, you can tell the percentage.
Yeah, when you look at that, so it just goes on to the rolls. So we will notify all the other districts so they know their tax caps, so they need to make sure they raise their levies to capture that as well.
Well, I think the school district floats it as high as they can go every time anyway.
Yeah, they usually overestimate, and then it gets cut down to the max, right? Any other questions on the TIF closing? And we will actually be doing this levy in the fall. So we got a ways to go. We set the levy when we to support the budget, and then when we file the levy in December, it goes to fund that current year for the general fund. So here's the tax rates. The blue rates on the top. That's Cook County. We took a little jump in 21 because of the multiplier. So the multiplier decreased to 2.9 something instead of the 3, and so that's why the Cook County tax rates went up. And then we've had the reassessment years kind of offset that. So that's why Cook County goes up and down. DuPage has steadily moved down. As far as the assessed value goes, 2023, we are estimating $1.41 billion in assessed value. That's kind of a landmark for us. In 2009, our EAV peaked at $1.37 billion. So this is the first time since 2009 that we've peaked. This is a new high for us. Getting into more of the other revenues, here's just kind of a big picture of our revenue for the general fund. You see the property taxes is about 30% of our general fund, so it's a pretty big piece of the pie. Just this revenue on this screen, the property tax, income tax, local use sales tax, home rule sales, that's about 88% of our general fund. Start out with income tax. Sometimes we call this the LGTD, Local Government Distributed Fund. We are budgeting $6,400,000. The per capita rate of about $155 per person. That's with our population of 41,105. This last year, they're estimating the IML $161, which is about $1 million over what the IML was budgeting. So the income tax has been doing very well in Illinois. That's some of the reason why their budget is doing better. But the IML keeps notching it down, and the income tax keeps going up. So it has been.
The bottom line on here, where you say state of Illinois rate is 4.95, municipalities receive 6%. That's the number that should be 10 legislatively.
Should be 10. Yeah. And they just had the budget. They just had their state of the state and their budget address, and there was no mention of any
Imagine that.
changes to any of that. Local use tax is also collected on a per capita. That's been doing pretty good as well. We're budgeting $1.7 million. It's $100,000 up from last year. The per capita rate is about $42.79. Sales tax, we're budgeting just over $4 million. That's 13% of the general fund. It's a $650,000 increase. We did increase it pretty conservatively in regard to all of the new businesses, but we increased it enough to cover rebates if we were going to be paying back sales rebates for that. We do have a Ace Hardware rebate, Culver's, the Auto Mall. We have a sales tax rebate with them, and then I think there's 2 more rebates in the works.
That 650,000 increase would primarily be online shopping and then also auto sales, or no?
We've built in some for there's more brewing as well. I think they are building something, so we are expecting them to open. Yeah.
How long is the Ace Hardware tax incentive?
10 years, I think.
How much longer do they still have to go?
Yeah, the ACE agreement was 10 years for a total of $50,000. They've got a few years to go still.
They've probably been there for 5 at least now, haven't they?
Seems longer than that for some, but
Yeah. Home rule sales tax is doing well too, especially since the online sales tax have been picking that up. So $2.6 million, $100,000 increase from this last year. I think there was a question in previous years. We did replace the natural gas utility taxes with the home rule sales tax. Back in 13 and 14, that utility tax peaked at $1.7 million, and we kind of reduced our rate after that, but that was the highest utility taxes got. Real estate transfer tax budgeted at $750,000. That's down about $100,000. Sales retail has dropped off, especially the commercial buildings. We were making $100,000 transfer stamps from the commercial buildings that we're selling. We haven't had anything over $25,000 this year. We are expecting building permits to pick up with some of the residential activity, some of the other businesses. So that's an increase of $200,000. Currently, we're at about $750,000 for this year, so we're doing pretty good. Gaming tax is budgeted at $375,000, $50,000 increase from last year. That's pretty conservative as well. We're using that to fund the BETA grants. And as far as some other miscellaneous general fund revenues, I haven't got slides for all of these, but there's cable TV franchise fee, $600,000, our garbage franchise fee, $140,000, antenna license fees, $300,000, and a a big revenue this year will be interest income with interest rates over 4%. We should be, we budgeted, kind of conservatively, just 500,000 in the general fund, but, we shouldn't have any problem reaching that amount.
We picked a good time to refinance our bonds a year or two ago.
Yeah, our bond rates are looking really good right now. As far as water rates, we, 12,960,000, that's up 360 from last year. That's based on a proposed rate increase of 4%. We talked about rate increases last year when we increased it 4%. Most of that is going towards our capital improvement plans, our water meters, our service lines. We'll get more into the fund balances at the end that show where that would take us. Water consumption has been up and down. You can see when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were using water at home. I think they were used to being at work and instead of in Bartlett, so water went up. It's slowly been going down 1% over the last year. So as the water goes down, our DuPage Water Commission bill does go down a little bit, but most of our costs, especially our capital improvement costs, are still there. So we're projecting the revenue to go up just a little bit with a 4% increase in the rates. For sewer, we're not proposing to raise the rate this year. One of the big drivers of the rate increase was our wastewater treatment plant IEPA loan payback, which was basically that starts when you have most of the project completed. We're expecting that to start in the fall of 23, but due to construction delays and it looks like it's going to be the fall of 24. So that's a $2 million payment, which we won't be making. And we also have been using ARPA funds as far as the rehabilitation projects. So we do have a pretty good fund balance. We'll talk about that later. As far as golf, we have talked about the golf rates, increases to golf rates. So we're expecting almost $190,000 increase, about 14% in the golf for golf charges. As far as the food and beverage, expecting just a 8% increase, by $82,000. It for the revenue. I'm going to move on to our brief. Again, with our proposed operating expenses being at just about $59 million. That includes also our debt service, our police pension. So that brings it down to about $51 million. Part of what's included in that operating cost is increased spending out of our Brewster Creek Municipal Fund. So we budgeted kind of in a miscellaneous account we're not sure what kind of projects we'll be able to spend that on, but the cost sharing with Elmer Chicago Stone and some other things. So that has raised it a little bit this last year. Again, as far as by type, personnel is our biggest area. Contractual services includes our DuPage Water Commission bill. So that's why those are a couple of the big ones. Public Works, Public Safety are our bigger departments. General Government, which makes up admin, finance, about 19%. Planning and Development, I shouldn't forget Planning and Development. As far as a quick summary on our general fund, estimated beginning cash balance is just under $18 million. Our revenues are budgeted to be under $30 million, expenditures $26 million, with transferring out about $4 million. Any balance is just about the same, just under $19 million. We'd be using about $80,000 of the fund. I'll get into a little bit more about the transfers to central services, vehicle replacement, transfer vehicle replacement in there, and then our annual transfer for the pension fund is also included in there. Central services, we sometimes talk about this, we don't always see, the balance. We've got about 819,000 expected to start the year. Annual transfers to departments, $1.5 million. Our proposed budget is 1.7 million, so we have an ending balance of 618. We have a couple of proposals, includes 46,000 for office software upgrades, machinery and equipment, about 194,000 total. We're also proposing, in addition to personnel, one entry-level IT person, which I didn't put down there. But our central services does include our IT staff and our GIS staff. So we currently have 4 full-time employees that are in the paid out of central services. Vehicle replacement has also become a big topic. Right now, 1.9 million. Part of the reason why we've got 1.9 million is because the trucks take so long to come in. So we transfer in about 700,000 a year. Our proposed budget is 1.4 million. Part of that, about 550,000 of that is carryover from budget trucks that were budgeted for, ordered last year, and they won't come in until this current year. And then 2 of the trucks, probably $400,000, won't come in during the 93-94 year. They'll come in sometime later, hopefully. But they have been having trouble getting the trucks in. We're waiting for the brush truck and 2 snowplows. Maybe with the lack of capital projects. This is the new. This is where we put the ARPA money. When we collected ARPA money, we collected $5.5 million. We moved it over to this fund so that we would keep track of it, so it wouldn't get lost. We have been using it for sewer rehabilitation, and we will be using it for the water meter replacement project. At the end of the 23-24 fiscal year, we'll be at about 3.7 million. And then we have another $1 million planned for the sewer rehabilitation and the water meters. So that will still leave a couple $1 million in the ARPA money. We call it the ARPA money. It's not technically restricted by the ARPA restrictions any longer. As far as our grant reporting, we reported it under public safety, and then we transferred the money over to the capital projects fund. Just so, but we still want to keep that for special projects. So as far as the budget snapshot review, there's no new taxes or fees, but the general levy, I think we covered that as far as why we need to increase that at this time to pick up on the closing of the TIF. Non-union wage increases are 3% for cost of living. We do have just the one employee that we're proposing to add as far as IT staff. We would be reducing one part-time employee. Proposing to raise the water rates, but not the sewer. And a big part of this budget is the 40 million capital improvements. As far as the fund balance goes, so we have a policy, 25 to 35% of operating. We used to increase the levy every day, which is why every year, is why this policy includes an average increase in the property tax levy. We also want to keep money for restricted funds. So the biggest restricted fund that we have is police equitable sharing funds. There's about $900,000 currently in that. So we're estimating to start the year at about just under 18 million. As I said, and just use 84,000. So we'll end the fund with the fund balance, which is over our policy. One thing I want to point out, though, is in the 24-25 year, we do have a capital improvement plans, mainly stormwater. We don't have a revenue source for stormwater. The general fund is going to be the big source for stormwater, which would bring that down about $3 million in the 24-25 year. So we have taken advantage of some of the COVID funding, but it's good to have the money going forward for these projects. One other thing that the general fund money might end up going towards is streets. I know in our MFT fund we've been using Rebuild Illinois money for the last 2 years, which has helped us build up a balance there. But that we should, with $1.7 million in MFT money coming in each year, that doesn't cover the amount of streets, as we saw a month or so ago in regard to the infrastructure and the needs that are in that area. Water fund should start at about a little over $6 million. We are budgeting to use some of the fund in the 23-24 year. Mainly that's because we are starting the alternating program, alternating between streets and the water main project, doing bigger pieces every other year to help the public works as far as managing those projects. So with the water main being scheduled for 24-25, you can see where the fund balance would come down to just over $4 million. That's with these fund balances projected are with the 4% increase each year. So part of the big cost is the meter program, and also the other infrastructure. Water tower painting is a big one. The sewer fund, you can see where it's going to go up quite a bit next year. That's because we had been ramping the rates up, getting ready for the $2 million a year. Also, the reason why it's going up to 23-24 is the use of ARPA money for our rehabilitation project. But you'll see 24-25, the next 3 years, that's with an increase of $475,000 a year with the rate increase, and that would take those balances down. So again, next year we'll reevaluate where we're at with those fund balances. But for this year, we're projecting a balance of about a little over $5 million, which I don't think we want to increase the rates at this time. That's it. So that's it. That's a quick overview of mainly the revenue. It's going to be at with some of our operating fund balances. We'll be sending out the proposed budget tomorrow. I'm not sure what time.
Todd, thank you very much for everything you did there. And honestly, you did a very good job. You did it in 30 minutes. So, outstanding.
I would just add, like I always add every time we go through this, I am so adamantly against having huge fund balances and increasing rates in certain areas. So we really need to take a close look at, if there's a fund balance that's over the exceeded amount for policy for 3 or 4 years, maybe we got to figure out how we can use some of those funds so we're not holding taxpayer money in a fund. I know this big, huge number for some of this is, like especially for sewer, is ARPA fund. So that's why that's jacked up so high. But I really don't like seeing the fund balances over the maximum because essentially what we're doing, obviously, is you're holding taxpayer dollars and using them over time. Well, we've got to be able to balance that out a little bit better so our fund balance is more in line with our policy.
Yeah, our capital budget did not include some of the areas that we need to really pick it up when Dan gave his presentation. So we will be increasing those amounts that we need to be working on our infrastructure improvements.
At any cost, if we can avoid any water rate hikes, and utilize some fund balance, that would make the most sense to me.
Well, Mayor, we've had those 2 years of no water rate hikes
Yeah.
and increases. And, what we should do I think we should do a better job of marrying the, 5-year capital plan to those,
Fund balance.
to those fund balances, so you can see, we look at them every year, but we shouldn't look at them in 1-year increments, and looking at it, that's
You gotta look at it over-
overlay the capital budget onto that, and maybe do a better job of showing that.
Yeah, I just think that,
Because it looks like there's a big, room full of gold coins.
extended period of time, yeah.
I also have a question. Why is food and beverage and golf separated as 2 separate budgets versus just one Encompass budget?
They're separated as far as revenue goes. As far as the fund, they're in one fund. And so we do consolidate the expense. You can see where they have each department. When the proposal comes out, you'll see that each section of golf has a separate budget, but they are in the same fund.
In essence, they're 2 separate entities. If you were, with the banquets and the golf.
Should be one, right?
Yeah, it's all in the fund, the golf fund.
Right.
Thank you, Christie. It's all in the golf fund. We break it out so we can track it better by,
Position.
mission, yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. President. That's all we have this evening.
Thank you, Chairman DEYNE. I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.